Hello, hello, welcome back. And today we're talking about something I am super passionate about. The topic is parents, stop pushing your daughters to become high achievers. And yeah, this is going to be so good. I have so many notes. And yeah, I hope you guys like it. So first of all, I'm grateful my parents did push me to be a high achiever. And this is in no way hate speech towards that. I am very grateful for it, and I've alchemized it into many wonderful things in my own life. And of course, it is fine and good to be making your own money. I'm not saying anything against that, so there you go. Disclaimers out of the way. And now let's get into it. So we should be pushing boys instead. I mean, what we see is the opposite is true. Parents are pushing their daughters to be high achievers, going to college, buying their own homes, like all this stuff. And we do not see boys doing that. In fact, it's actually the research is done that women graduate more than men do now, and they're buying homes more than men do now. So it is absolutely crazy. And hold on, let me see. The dog is doing something crazy. Okay, don't worry. Dogs are not allowed inside, but it was making a whole bunch of noise. Anyways, so you were talking about boys are not pushed as much as girls, I feel like. And I think we see that throughout culture. And definitely of the people that I've seen, it's the girls who are being pushed to become like lawyers and doctors and like big high achieving things. And the boys are kind of left to do their own thing. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, women put their heart and soul in what they do. And as women, we are naturally people pleasers. So we will push ourselves. And, evolutionarily, if you look back at like evolutionary science and things like that, women were people pleasers. And that's how we survived. Because we weren't strong like men. And we couldn't overpower men physically or anything. So we learned to please everyone around us so we could stay alive, pretty much. So looking at it from a scientific view, how scientists say how it's in our DNA, I can kind of see how that could be the case because we definitely people please way more than men do. I mean, if a man doesn't want to go somewhere or do something, he will stick his heels in the ground and he won't do it. But for women, I mean, and I've noticed that in myself, is even if I still don't want to do something, I will do it just to make the other person happy or to make their life easier or whatever the case may be. And women, this is another point, when they decide to be alpha, they out-alpha everybody else, including most men. And like how we were talking about when women buy more houses nowadays and what was the other thing? And graduate more, Because, and why does this happen? It's because going back to the evolutionary sciences, men have this conserved energy switch, which we still see here today, which is if a woman is going to do something, their conserved energy switch will go on. And that can be really maddening. But when you look back into the science point of view, back to when we were in tribes and things, it makes complete sense because when they were off, to do the hunting, a lot of them could get killed or they wouldn't come back because they would get killed or hurt. And it was very dangerous. It was a very dangerous thing to do. So men learned not to engage themselves in things that would deplete their energy or things like that if they didn't absolutely have to do something because they were saving all of that for when they'd have to go on those hunts. And we still see that today in different ways, where if the man thinks that the woman has something under control, his conserve energy switch will pop on and he'll just let her do it. He's like, okay, if you want to do it and it looks like you have it under control, then all right, I'll let you do it. And that makes a lot of women mad, especially high achievers, because we tend to, if we want something done, we'll do it ourselves, right? Is what a lot of us do. And that kind of puts the man at a place where he's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? I guess I'll just sit here and stay out of the way, even though that's the opposite of what you want him to do, right? but it's this really interesting dynamic. And so since women are the people pleasers, when some aren't high achievers at all. We definitely see that. But those of us who are high achievers, we sacrifice what our desires are for our parents, what they want us to do, what society wants us to do, or what our friends or what our boss says. And we do this to the detriment of ourselves. Even like women's fathers, when she wants to have a family and everything, her father will be the one being like, why do you want that? And what are you going to do all day? You're just going to do nothing? And it's in complete ignorance, I feel like, because raising children or having a family is a lot of work. It gets outsourced most of the time these days, and we see where that's taking society. We'll get more into that later. But it's a lot of work to raise kids. If you've been around a mom with kids, I'm sure you can see that it is a lot of work to keep them entertained and fed and happy and cared for, and teach them the right things and teach them values and virtues and religion and all the things that we have to teach a child. It's a lot. And when people think it's not a lot of work, or that you can work and have kids at the same time and think that you'll do just fine at it, well, a lot of that gets outsourced to daycare and the state and government schools and all of these things. And now we see what that's popping out. We see what kids are like nowadays. It's a really bad state of affairs. Even going back to how women become such high achievers and they'll out-achieve everybody else, and how we're trying to be men because that's what culture seems to keep pushing, and families and everything. And that's where we think we only have our values in the money that we bring. The thing is, women cannot be men. We are built differently, and that is a thing that I know most people don't like to hear. It's very politically incorrect. But just think of the National Geographic or Natural Geographic shows. And when they talk about animals, what do they talk about? They talk about the difference between the male and the female species. And they do that a lot. They do that with every single kind. But why is it okay to do there, but not for people? And especially when science says that Homo sapiens are animals too. So I don't get that part. It makes no sense to me. But there are huge differences between men and women. And it doesn't mean someone's better or worse. It just means that it's different. And when women try to be men, we cannot be men. We do not have the stamina, the endurance, the strength, the testosterone, which is what fuels all of that, to be able to push and grind just like a man. A man can work off of staying up 5 days and 5 nights and just living off of coffee and a whole bunch of stress. They can do that. But a woman cannot. Yes, you can, but you will do that to such a detriment of your hormones and your body and your health and a whole bunch of other things. It is a really bad state of affairs for the body. Because a woman's body is not meant to handle things in that way. And this is another thing, going back to science, where, men were the hunters and women were the gatherers. And when you look at the hunter-gatherer societies. And so men were the ones expected, and they were the ones that would go out and hunt and have to use all of that, the testosterone to be able to do that, staying up and being on guard and not sleeping on those hunts, and then all the physical exertion and all of that stuff. Whereas women didn't necessarily have to do that when they were the gatherers, staying at the camp. And let me think, where was I going with that? Let me think. Okay, yes. So women were not given biologically as much testosterone because they weren't needing to do all those things. But we were given a reserve, just in case, say, what if all the men in the tribe died? And women now needed to provide for themselves and take care of themselves and do all those things. We had some testosterone given to us, which we all still do, to be able to handle those periods of times, to be able to survive. But what happens nowadays is we are living as if there are no men around. We are living as if we have to provide and protect for ourselves and do everything in that way, and work as if like there's this lion chasing us that we just need to achieve more and keep going and keep going, keep going, keep going. And that is so bad for our hormones, because we were not given that level of testosterone. We were just given a little bit to help us through like a really bad time if there were no men. But that wasn't meant to be how we were supposed to stay and live our whole entire lives. But what happens nowadays is that is how we are staying and living our whole entire lives. And we are seeing that this manifest in so many adrenal fatigue imbalances in women, and cancer, especially like in the women's part of the body, because that's where the testosterone comes from. The testosterone is comes from in a woman from her adrenal glands, and in I forget, there's one other place, but when the testosterone gets depleted, you will get either adrenal fatigue or uterine cancer or ovarian cancer and all of those things. And I know this is true because this has happened to my grandmother, who her husband owned this huge company, and he died suddenly of a heart attack, and she had to take over, and she did an amazing job, and she was so gifted at what she did, and she never married again, and it took a toll on her body. I feel like she died way younger than she should have, and she died from cancer, from either ovarian or uterine cancer. I can't remember which one. But it's because it has just used up all the testosterone out of the body, and the body just can't keep going. So this is a really big thing that I hope women can understand, that your health is taking a huge hit if you are just pushing yourselves like that. And yeah. So now we have all these 40 or 50-year-old women who are so depressed and angry because culture sold them a lie that career was the most important thing. And now they're all alone, just living with their cat. And we see this. I mean, Jordan Peterson has amazing videos on this, and they're like a slap to the face, as a wake-up call. And like some of them are titled, I can't remember, like Society's Biggest Lie to 19-year-old women. And the lie is that society pushes is pursue career and over absolutely everything else. Pursue career over absolutely everything else, and that it's the most important thing. And what do we see? Now we see that there are no families are not staying together anymore, and birth rates are absolutely plummeting because no one's having kids, or having one or two, which is not enough to sustain a society. And Elon Musk talks about this, that he says the biggest threat that the world is facing right now is not environmental warming or whatever people come up with, but it is actually that there aren't going to be enough people to sustain society. And so this is a really big thing. And we are taught and groomed that family is not important and irrelevant. We are taught that our only worth is how much money we make. And where is this getting society today? It's going down the drain, right? I mean, children are being raised by the state and daycare. Moms are nowhere to be found. They're off doing their own thing, work, their own friends, out and about. Their feet are not inside their home. And kids go back to the street. And now we wonder why we have all these kids on drugs and not getting where in society and all of this stuff. Juvenile delinquency is parental delinquency. Women are the backbone of a nation. Women are the backbone of a nation. Destroy womanhood and you've destroyed the nation. And the devil knows that. I mean, men behave better because of women. I mean, take a group of men or boys and set a girl in the middle of them or beside, And you'll see their behavior and everything change. They will act better. They won't be saying certain things. Their whole standards will have risen just because of her just sitting there. She doesn't even have to say anything. And yeah. Now I'm going to read you guys this quote, which was from John Adams' autobiography when he was visiting France. And he was saying how in France, like all the women were just all over the city, and he was like, how bad society was because they're just like all out there and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it is really very interesting. I mean, this is back in the 1700s, 1778, I think he was there. Anyways, this is so good. This whole thing is gold. So John Adams said, "The manners of women were the most infallible barometer to ascertain the degree of morality and virtue in a nation. The Jews, the Greeks, the Romans, the Swiss, the Dutch, all lost their public spirit, their republican principles and habits, and their republican forms of government when they lost the modesty and domestic virtues of their women. The foundations of national morality must be laid in private families. In vain are schools, academies, and universities instituted if loose principles and licentious habits are impressed upon children in their earliest years. The mothers are the earliest and most important instructors of youth. The vices and examples of the parents cannot be concealed from the children. How is it possible that children can have any just sense of the sacred obligations of morality or religion, if from their earliest infancy they learn that their mothers live in habitual infidelity to their fathers, and their fathers in as constant infidelity to their mothers? Besides, the Catholic doctrine is that the contract of marriage is not only a civil and moral engagement, but a sacrament, one of the most solemn vows and oaths of a religious devotion. Can they then believe religion and morality to anything more than a veil, a cloak, a hypocritical pretext for political purposes of decency and conveniency? So that's a question. If the kids are just seeing infidelity from their parents and society all around, but mostly their parents, then what will they think of religion? They will just see it as a cloak, a hypocritical pretext of just something you do to be just for the purposes of political decency and just convenience. So this is a really big thing. You know, women keep the standards in a nation. Women keep the standards in a nation. And I never really understood this, but this is so good. Because if she lets men have access to her before marriage, what incentive is there for a man to commit and provide and protect? It's gone. It's completely gone. And we see this in culture today. Culture then becomes self-centered and lazy when this happens. Cultures in the past that did this became weak and got taken out by other nations who did not. Do I dare say that we are seeing the exact same thing happen in our nation today? In the Western countries, civilizations of the world. You know, the same thing is playing out right now. I mean, men probably think that free access to women is nice. And women probably think that it's nice that they can do whatever they want. But let me start that again. So, you know, men probably think that free access to women is nice and doesn't hurt them. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. You know, usually it's pushed that, okay, all this free stuff hurts women more than men. But no, it hurts men, I would say, equal or almost more than women. I would say equal. I mean, it's pretty hurtful both ways. You know, because these women destroy them and their families or future families. You know, the ones that they just like hang out and hook up with. Because a man is all about his legacy. And what legacy is he making by having children with a woman who doesn't share his values? It creates chaos. Proverbs 7:25-27 says, "Let not thine heart decline to her ways. Go not astray in her paths. For she hath cast down many wounded. Yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell." going down to the chambers of death. And I think in a literal sense, her house is the way to hell, that is true. But I also feel like it puts the family through hell on earth in the same way. So that is a really powerful verse. And, I get so passionate about these things, this topic, because I get so hurt when I see the children that are hurting from these things that are happening, and the families that are hurting from these things that are happening, that I feel that people just aren't teaching. Pastors are too afraid to speak on most of the time. I mean, in conservative traditional places, they will lay this stuff out. But for the most part, we are not seeing this, and it's sad. Going back to women thinking that all the value that they have, that they provide, is either that, being promiscuous, or money, and instead of becoming a high achiever and trying to be a man, it's because everyone is searching for their purpose. All this stuff is happening because everyone is searching for, I need to find my purpose, what I'm meant to do in the world. And the thing is, this never used to be. This never used to be the case. This never used to be something people used to worry about. It's this epidemic we see in society today that never used to be happening. Because religious books, everyone in the past, they had their form of religion. And the religious books laid out the path to a fulfilling life. They gave you the pathway of what you're supposed to do to live a happy, good life. And so women knew that they were supposed to be, when they grew up, that they were going to be homemakers and have kids. And men knew that when they grew older, that they were going to learn how to work and provide as best a living for their family that they could and be providers. So each knew what they were supposed to be doing. And this is how it works best. Paul says that women are to keep their feet in their home, not just constantly going off places and having their feet outside their home. And this sounds harsh. Nowadays probably no one would want to hear that, but there is so much truth to this. And I think if someone is wise, they will see that. There is so much that happens when a woman's feet are outside of her home, like when she's not caring for and taking care of her family. Because first of all, women are really good at gossiping and spreading tales and rumors and talking about people. And that is one thing where Paul had said that, if there's a young widow, let her get married again and bear and have a family, because otherwise she's just going to be a talebearer and a tattletailer and just going from house to house spreading things. And we see that still happening today. And the other thing is, women need that containment from a man. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's not like one is better than the other or anything. But when women are just out and about and just everywhere else, but where they're supposed to be helping creating this beautiful, wonderful atmosphere and raising the next generation, like what could be better than, or more purpose-driven, or more glorious than that? There are lots of things that can happen. We see what happens when women are in the workplace and how all of these affairs and stuff happen. Or there are so many different ways we could go about explaining this. Or just them being out, like things happen and families get torn apart. And there are people I know that this has happened to them and their families. And I would say that this has happened to more than 50% of the people that I know. Not like the more religious, traditional people that I know, but just like the regular people, the average good person. And it's a really hard thing. So it's not necessarily freedom to just be out running around and doing things for everybody else but your own family. There usually is no value to that. It brings no value. In fact, it usually just brings harm and bitterness and heartache. And I think probably the older generation, if you're probably like, I don't know what I should say, probably 70 and older and you've seen life, you can probably see how this is true. And I'm hoping that the rest of us can kind of read between the lines and see how these are not rules meant to like constrict you or constrain you. Like, I'm not saying you can never leave your house. Like, no, I'm not saying that. But we can see where there is truth to these things. So, anyways, I hope that really took a light to some of these topics, and I'll leave with this one thing. You, as a woman, do not need to achieve in order to prove your value. You do not need to achieve in order to prove your value. You are enough. And I hope you can take that in and believe it. And if you need help doing that and want to go even deeper, then check out my amazing course down below. It's called Divinely Favored. And there's some amazing, amazing things that we go through on how you can transform your mind and be happy and go after what you want. Like how we were talking in the beginning, that we tend to be people pleasers and go after what everyone else wants for our life. This will help you start living your dream life. So I hope you'll go check that out. It's down below. And definitely like this video. I'll wait for it. And subscribe. And leave me a comment. I know this is kind of controversial, so I'll be interested to hear your opinion. And leave a nice comment if you liked it. And I'll see you in the next one. And also follow me on Instagram at @IamVibrantElegance. I'd love to see you there too. And I post more of my daily stuff there, so I think you guys will like that too. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.